Okay, let's start.
Let's do this, yeah.
So this is today's journey. We have already started doing what we're calling today. We're playing with a flight and travel metaphor today with you. So we've done our boarding and customs check, which is our pre-test. Then my colleague Garrett will give us an in-flight briefing, sharing why do we need cross-cultural intelligence. Then we will create some scenarios and situational judgment tasks. Then we will have our layover, which is we will be mapping our cultural coordinates, and there we will be going into breakout rooms. So we will be asking you to create something and discuss around it. We will come back. We will invite some of you to share. Like Garrett said, raising your hand will allow the mic and camera access. And then you will come back to breakout groups. Oh no, then we will learn from Garrett again, tips from seasoned explorers, basically, which means what helps develop cultural intelligence. And then you will go back to breakout rooms to design across borders. You will have a fun little challenge over there that you will have to collaborate and solve. And then we will come back to do a souvenir swap, sharing what everyone made, providing input to each other. Then we will do our post survey. And finally, we will end with our connections to Prime Pedagogy and a little teaser for our next webinar around strengthening emotional intelligence in business students.
Fantastic. I'm just updating my name on here in the chat so
Okay.
people can see me, not just as Mr. Prime. All right. Yeah, thank you, everyone. And again, if you were able to finish the pretest, thank you. If you haven't, please just take a minute. I'm going to go through this flight path pretty quickly. But if you want to take that survey, that's great too. But yeah, so why are we designing and really kind of celebrating cross-cultural business education today? Mostly it's because tackling some of the wicked problems in the world require us to work together. And when we look at the SDGs, we look at what was it? The International Monetary Fund talked about how uncertainty is the new normal, and you see this kind of reporting throughout the world these days. These wicked problems do require diversity. So it's one way to look at that is to think about how to navigate the air together as we are together as nations, as cultures, and as contexts, really. So when we move into this next slide where we have our shared navigation system, there are many different ways to frame cultural intelligence. A lot of this can be, there's tons of literature on it, and if I'll show you a QR code in a moment to look at a literature review that we wrote for you all so that you don't necessarily have to take our word for it, but you can look at the literature. But we decided to kind of settle into CQ today. And I know there's many different frameworks, but again, if you want, you can also, if you're starting to see everybody's cursors floating around, you can go up to the top of your Miro board. Um, yeah, and the link to the Miro board is below in the chat. If you click on the numbers next to all the images and then scroll down to Show Cursors tab, you can turn that off. And I'm going to do that for myself right now, actually. And I see we have 59 attendees and only 19 of us in here. So can you, if you have a moment, actually, let me just do a status check here. If you can click on the Access to Miro board link at the bottom of the chat in Zoom, that'll help you get in. Yeah, I see the numbers going up. And we're going to be using this Miro board throughout the day, like we often do. So please log in so that you can have the full experience. We will also, we know that not all of you can do that, so no problems. But yeah, we'll also be screen sharing. So, okay, back to the navigation system here. So, cultural intelligence is the ability to work effectively across cultures. We looked at this in the literature, and it's essential for responsible global leadership. In some ways, makes sense if we're countering each other in our different cultural contexts and norms. It also promotes equitable and sustainable business practices. And it's also for inclusive cultures that value the diverse worldviews that help us to solve those wicked problems that we mentioned a moment ago. So now here's here's a bit here. We're going to move to the next slide on the 4 dimensions of CQ. I think you all might find this really valuable. Some of this may seem obvious to you. I know we're all on the spectrum of how much access we have to this or how familiar you are. And then Jacqueline, I see that you can't access it. Let me just double check to see why that could be. You do not need to have a login for this. It's available to everybody, but if you want to follow along on the screen, that should suffice now. And you're all welcome to, if you can't access the Miro board, to add notes in the chat, and we will transfer them when it's applicable. But okay, so back to the 4 dimensions of CQ. Look at these as these kind of progressions of awareness, and we have these 4 stages or dimensions: our metacognitive, our thinking about our own thinking, the awareness of our own thinking; the cognitive, where we start to look at our ability to change the way that we think; the motivational piece of it, like what motivates us to or incentivizes us to change; and then what are we going to change? It's those behaviors, and it's the fourth one. And we create these four row or 3 rows below there to give you some examples of what it is, why we do it, and how we can do it. And this could be really useful for you all when you're trying to transfer this into your own classrooms or to your online courses. So once again, we're asking you to be the students that you wish you have in your classroom, and then you'll be able to more easily transfer this back into the classroom. So let me just go through these really quick, okay? So for metacognitive, what is it? It's an awareness to plan, reflect, and adapt. And without it, people people apply these home culture defaults or these kind of biases and assumptions and sometimes naivete. So our ability to kind of be aware that we have that is useful to when we walk into a room with people or into a chat room or a forum like this. It's helpful to be aware of those. You can How you can address these in classroom or even in your workplace is to have these kind of assumption audits where we name the assumptions. I also just saw there's an article that just was published today in the Academy of Management Journal on how, let's see, what is it called? The boundaries of trust in a new era, and it talks about vulnerability and our ability to take risks and such. So again, here when we take risks and are vulnerable with our assumptions, it allows us to also build trust, not only the ability to understand the cultural implications. And you can rewind for missed signals. So sometimes you may have a feeling that something went wrong in a conversation, and you can kind of rewind and own this kind of metacognitive thing about cultural intelligence. The cognitive piece, the knowledge of cultural norms and systems, it's helpful to be aware of those. You can learn about those things, ask lots of questions. Also, it helps us to provide a vocabulary for us to interpret without stereotyping. And so you can just imagine to become more vulnerable and more human with each other. How we can look at that is to contrast beliefs, but also to name that norm as a habit. Sometimes that can be a funny thing, but also sometimes it's serious. So it's something that it's important that you can do in your classrooms or in the workplace. And then motivational, why, what is it? It's the drive and the confidence to engage. And why is it important? Looks like I duplicated here. Why is because sometimes it's really difficult. Our intentions don't get all of the work done. So we may have good intentions to see each other and understand each other, but sometimes we need to be motivated to go beyond that. There's also how we can do that is through these low risk reps like we're doing today. We like to say that play is an opportunity to try things out in low risk environments and help us practice this risk tolerance. It's also an opportunity to give your students or yourselves or your colleagues an opportunity to approach rather than avoid each other. And then lastly, with behavioral, and I'll move on to the other slides here shortly. The behavioral piece is when it comes to cultural intelligence is it's the ability to act appropriately. Sometimes that's not easy, and sometimes we have to ask for permission or be vulnerable again. But why is this important? Because again, good intentions can fail if delivery clashes with the local expectations. And then how we can test this or to work with this is to A/B test what a direct versus indirect behavior looks like. And so that way we can see if people are not aware of each other's cultural contexts. And then we can do that directly and indirectly. And then there's these feedback ladders where you start to just give each other feedback and kind of progress your way towards more dynamic interactions with each other. So thank you for bearing with me with that chart. I think that one will be useful. We will be adding that as well to the supplement for certainty. I could have had that ready for you today, but we'll have that ready. If you want, I am going to share a link to, sorry, I'm going to share the link to that cultural or that supplement for certainty in the chat now. Oops, wrong one. My bad. Copy the link here. There we go. So there's that supplement certainty. Okay, so now we're gonna go move on to the passports. So what is it? Why? What are we doing when we go through this process? And some of it is we are navigating this space, and sometimes this cultural intelligence allows us to make a quantifiable impact. So, for example, cultural values explain up to 26% of the SDG outcomes. So ignoring culture reduces their effectiveness. That's pretty obvious. You can imagine that, but also if you want to have more questions on that, you can look at our literature review, which I'll show you in a moment. Wicked problems, again, we're visiting that. The cultural intelligence or the CQ enables adaptive, inclusive decision making for complex changes because we're many people sitting at the table from around the world many times. How to challenge ethos. These question profit first models and support regenerative people centered approaches. Many of you are here for Prime is because you're aligned with that view. And then the theoretical reinforcement. So if we look at the SDGs, SDG 4 and 10 promote diversity and reflective leadership. So there's more substance to that as well. Now again, next to the next slide, trust is as the altitude of global teams. High cultural intelligence or high CQ builds psychological safety and shared identity. We've been talking about that throughout the Prime Pedagogy Certificate series is creating that safety allows us to take risks, to not only tolerate risks, but to celebrate it, but also for us to be innovative and creative. And then low CQ erodes communication and cohesion. So if we're running into those obstacles, you can imagine how that can help or hinder us along the way. And then navigating these wicked problems. So we're back to this again. These wicked problems are everywhere. They can't be solved with one size fits all thinking. And if we could slide the view over a little bit, Maria, that'd be really great. Thank you. Culturally intelligent leaders tend to blend local and global knowledge. So being aware of each other's contexts and their norms, but also understanding some of these global trends to be able to move freely between those seems like a really great idea and is a really good indicator of cultural intelligence or CQ. All right, glad to see everybody's getting what they need in the chat. Thank you for your support, Maria, and I think Apurva is out there. And Marietta, hola. The shift
Hello.
the shift turns difference into a renewable source of insight. So it's not to say that our differences are obstacles, they actually become a more renewable source, meaning that we have the ability to look at all of these different opinions. And if you even look into the sources of creativity, often these differing perspectives allow us to kind of wake ourselves up from these norms and give us more fodder for these insights and creative ideas and innovation. Two concepts here that might be helpful. This ethno-relativism. My culture is one of many valid standards. There's some great literature on adult cognitive development by William Perry, talking about how we move through this kind of looking at things as black or white. This is what I believe, and versus those who disagree with me. And the evolution of our cognitive development moves into this more away from this ethnocentrism and more into this ethno-relativism, meaning that there are many different versions of viewing the world, and I am but one. When you gain this awareness, it helps you navigate. There's a whole literature on that as well, so we can dig into that. I'm going to move down to this final row here and move over to the flight code. So ethical decision making, CQ bridges and the divides in contextual meanings for fairness, justice, and responsibility. You can see how our ability to see how our worlds are different can help us understand what different forms of justice look like, why some communities hold responsibility for different parts of the planet or different parts of the market or even for taking responsibility for each other. The different ways that we express that can help us learn from each other. Leaders are grounded in CQ honor these local moral frameworks. They build trust through fairness and inclusion, and they avoid ethical blind spots born of this cultural myopia. So, just some little side notes here. And again, we'll share the literature in a moment. And if you're in Miro, you can already scan that QR code for that whole lit review. Now, how do policy and pedagogy? They must fit the local sky. So, for example, collectivist contexts, those who believe that we are powerful, more healthy, and our well-being is more helped by being working together. We thrive under community-led policies. In some individualist contexts, they may prefer entrepreneurial approaches, where one individual or a small group can make things happen. Now, it's important to think about how we may be bringing that, for example, that's often been attributed to different Western versus Eastern civilizations or different countries. I think that's changing in many ways, but I'll let you all look at our literature review and do the research as well. But alignment with cultural norms is a sustainable way to look at the world. Now, lastly, the journey begins within. So CQ starts with understanding one's own cultural lens, which we will dive into in a moment with you. And I'll stop talking and we'll start playing together. But when we build this CQ, we don't just fly further, we fly together. And this allows us to align our diverse values and so help us to navigate turbulences. So we may all have different experiences and can be able to help each other with different contexts while also building trust. Everyone can engage in these cross-cultural opportunities every day. It opens us up on so many levels. You can see all of the different tiers here. And CQ isn't just for global roles. It's for any context where difference shapes how we speak. It could be how you act today. So we hope that you are vulnerable today, take some risks, and we're going to jump into some play. In the meantime, if you want to see that lit review, there's a QR code just below. You can scan it now with your phone, but also, yeah, you can see it in the Miro board as well. But thank you so much for bearing with me as we walk through that. Just wanted to give you a quick update. And again, very large literature review here for you all if you have more questions. And thank you. Off to you, Maria. Oh, my bad. I'm on the next one. Okay, so forgive me, it's quite early here, so I'm just getting caffeinated. You'll see that in our pre-test, we gave you some situational judgment tasks. It's one way to show that there's behavior change. We've given surveys in the test in the past where we give a pre-test survey and a post-test survey with like Likert items and open-ended measures, but we also wanted to not only give you those opportunities for us to see what we learned from you all and how you're growing and developing these skills that we're focusing in on today, but we also wanted to give you an opportunity to engage in this. So if you have your phone available, if you can either take a picture or zoom in on this QR code or look at the link in the chat, we're asking you to actually help us develop some of these situational judgment tasks. And again, this is part of that, not just cross-cultural difference, but between faculty and students. And in our case, we're playing the role of faculty and you all are being the students, is that we want to get some ideas about what are some of these cross-cultural scenarios that you all deal with. So when you scan this, just take a few moments to follow the questions. We're going to ask you to contribute some authentic experiences that could help us to develop more of these SJTs as a measure of of your skills development here. So I'll be quiet for a moment, and then once you all are done, if you can give us a thumbs up or a comment in the chat, that would be fab. Thank you. If you look at the bottom of your Zoom window, there's a little heart that says react. If you click on that and then send a thumbs up when you're done, that would be really great. Thank you. All right, let's see those thumbs up. Is everybody doing okay? If you have any questions, you can also raise your hand and we'll turn on your mic. No pressure. This can take a little while, but just trying to be supportive.
All right, thank you so much. We have some experience creating SGTs or discussions on system thinking and like complex, yeah, generation, design thinking. Thank you so much. We're gonna move on to the next part of this webinar. So let me just move here. All right, so we are landing in our phase first layover. And what we're going to do is we're going to map the cultural coordinates of our institutions. So using this framework developed by Erin Meyer, using that identifies 8 different dimensions that shape the different ways in which organizations communicate, lead, and make decisions across cultures. I'll just give you a quick overview before we jump into breakout rooms. The first dimension being communicating, which ranges from low context, which means very explicit, direct, detailed, to high context, meaning that you need, it's very implicit and you need to read between the lines. Um, so yeah, like think of how much your colleagues rely on what's said or unsaid. Then we have evaluating, which is direct negative feedback versus indirect. So in some cultures, feedback can sound blunt. In others, it's really wrapped in all these layers of positivity. The third dimension being persuading, principles first. So the way you persuade someone is like theory and frameworks before the examples versus applications first, where you start with practice. And I think business schools often reveal their spot on this one right away. Then we have leading, which is egalitarian versus hierarchical. So depending on how flat or vertical the decision changes are in your institutions. Then we have deciding, which is consensual versus top-down. So who makes the call, the group or the leader, basically. Then we have trusting, a task-based versus relationship. So do we trust because of results or because we have built bonds or somewhere in between? Then we have disagreeing, which is confrontational versus avoiding confrontation. How comfortable are people in this culture with open debate or dissent? Ooh, then we have time and scheduling. So linear time versus flexible time. So do you work in an organization that lives by the clock or is more flexible or lives more like flow? So before we go into breakout rooms, I'm going to ask you, so we're all going to choose the 4 dimensions that you would like to work on for the next 10 minutes. So what I'm going to ask you to do, I'm going to bring everyone to me. And if you left the board, please join again. If someone can help me reshare the link of the board in the chat. Now that everyone's here, I'm going to ask you to drag one of these votes. Well, 4 actually, 4 of these, just like I'm doing right now, on the 4 categories that you would like to discuss with your colleagues and peers in the breakout groups. Okay, so I'm going to delete mine. Perfect. I already see some dots. I'm going to show cursors just to make sure. Yes, we have everyone around here. All right, so let's get the voting started. We're only going to have 1 or 2 minutes to get the voting done so we can jump straight into discussing. Okay, so again, drag a dot to the categories, 4 categories that you would like to see and work on right after this in the breakout rooms. Amazing. Ooh, okay, we have some giant dots. Thank you. I'm just gonna make them smaller and lock them. Perfect. All right. Let's do 20 more seconds so we all finish our voting. Ooh, okay. 10 more seconds. And time. Okay, so now there's some of them that I'm not sure exactly where they belong. So I'm just gonna, okay. And Gary, can you help me count each
Yeah, totally.
category? Thank you. All right, let's see one.
I think we got these. Looks like
We
disagreeing.
have 20 for communicating, 11 for scheduling, 22 for disagreeing. Oh, okay. Oh, thank you, Anna. 14 for trusting,
That's great.
12 for, oh no, 14 for deciding.
And just to kind of get a little meta here, the fact that Maria is doing this counting and allowing this to happen real time, this is building, we hope this builds trust as well. There's, again, vulnerability. I shared a link to an AOM article about how vulnerability helps to build trust. It does take a little bit of cognitive flexibility to be able to do this, but I think your students will appreciate efforts like this to bring a little play and some interaction here to adapt it to your all's needs.
All right, so it looks
Wow.
like we might have a tie between trusting and deciding for our
Yeah,
fourth one.
there we go. Thank you, Anna. Anna.
Okay. So I'm gonna let you decide, Gary. Do you prefer trusting or oh, I think deciding just got one more vote. Okay.
There we go.
Perfect. Okay, so so give us one moment to set up both the breakouts and the boards you will be working on. So we have on our number one, we have disagreeing, confrontational. Let's see. Dis disagreeing, confrontational, disagreeing versus avoids confrontation. And if you can help me, Garrett, set up the breakout
Yeah,
rooms in the
yeah.
meanwhile. Thank you so
How many would you
much.
like to have, Maria? We have,
So 4 or 5 people per breakout room.
okay, thank you.
And we have communicating, so low context versus high context communication.
All right, I have it ready when you are. No pressure.
Mm.
Thank you all for your patience. This
Yeah,
real
we wanted
time.
to give you the agency to decide the categories, but that also means that we have to do some of the setup live.
Hmm.
All right. Then on number 3, we have evaluating direct versus indirect feedback. And then deciding top-down decision making. Well, top-down. All right. And then I'm just going to copy a few of these and then we will
There's
jump into the
14
big.
breakout rooms to get us to
Perfect.
4 to 5 per room. Just a
All
heads
right.
up.
So let's do 14 of these.
And so what will happen is we're about to assign you into breakout rooms. Each of you, each of your groups in those breakout rooms will choose one of those spectrums, and you will evaluate on each of those four components, those four cultural dimensions, where your organization, your university, your department, you all have this discussion together. It's not that there's a voting, it's more of a dialogue or a didactic for you all to look at and see where your organizations are, and then talk about how you know, or what are some of the behaviors or keys that you see to evaluate where your organization is on that spectrum. So I'm going to create those breakout rooms now. You will be assigned to them. Let us know if you are unable to get in. You can raise your hand and we'll talk about it. But please turn on your cameras and your mics and share, and then start putting more of those dots. We'll add, yep, Maria's already adding dots, and we'll see you in your breakout rooms. We'll be hopping around, but we'll bring you back. How much time do we have, Maria? We have
10
what, 10
minutes.
more minutes? Okay.
Yes.
Have fun in your breakouts. Okay, so we have 20 of you all. We're still in the main plenary session. Let us know if you have any questions. You should have been assigned. If not, we'll try to we'll try to get you in there. Or we can do this as group here if needed. So, and Bilal, yeah, there we go. Thank you all. And Chandra, Deanna, Dr. Nivedita, Grace, Helena, Karen, Christina, Michael, Natalie, Nupur, Pauline, Pavel, Sanvedi, Shata, Vijaya, Xiaojing, and Yasina. Let us know if you need any help, okay? Good to know, Karen. Not able to get into the breakouts if you're in the browser. Okay.
Yeah, we've had that before. Great, we can see room 12 has already claimed a spot in the board.
Mm. Oh, okay. Pauline, nobody's in there? Okay. Pauline, I may join you over there in a minute. We're gonna try to make sure everybody finds a space. And many times people who are left out of these are, like you said, either on a browser or life has gotten busy. Okay.
Oh, I see no one has joined. Yeah, room 10, but maybe we can send Pauline to room 9 that has 3 people. And we can figure out what's going on with the people in room 10 in the meanwhile.
Okay. I can do that. So Pauline, I'm gonna move you to room 9. There we go. Looks like there's room 3 has 2 people. Otherwise, every other room has at least 3 people active, and it appears active. Okay. Is anyone in the main plenary? If you're here, can you raise your hand or leave a note in the chat and we can talk about this here in the main session? That'd be great if you let us know. Hi, Karen. Yeah, let's pick out a spectrum together.
All right, I'll claim one right now. Just close the breakout room setup. We have 5 here. We have an empty one here. We'll
Okay.
call it the plenary room. There we go. Okay. And Karen, let's bring you over here so you can talk. Can you try to unmute and see if we can talk? Yes.
Yep, that should be unmuted. Is it just me? That's not a great group, is
We're here too.
it?
Thanks for chiming in. And yeah, what are your thoughts on your organization? I don't know if you're choosing a university or you don't need to name it if you don't want to, but what are you working with today? You thinking about your department? You thinking about your university?
um, I've actually been so confused trying to get this to actually work while
Hmm.
using it through a browser that the main thing I've decided is to make sure I actually download the app next time.
Well, we can help you if you want us to put the dots on the spectrum for you.
No, I have eventually figured it out, but I keep getting another window up that just kind of covers everything else up, and I can't even see what I'm doing or notes or anything. It just covers the whole thing up, and then I have to get rid of that, and then I'm trying to get back to the right window in my browser because I've got far too many open and things like that.
Oh man,
So
I know that feeling.
so
Yeah,
it's just
same.
I'm not really, yeah, I've not really actually reached the point of deciding on a unit to consider or anything. I'm just trying to keep up with what's going on.
Yeah. I'm gonna start putting blue dots on
Mm,
I
our
would say
online.
for my department at work, if we look at disagreeing confrontationally or avoiding confrontation, I would say we tend quite a lot to avoid confrontation,
Yeah.
okay. So
even when
over
it really would be
here.
much better to discuss things and face up to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. How do you feel about that? Is it get frustrating or does it make you feel comfortable?
Well, it gave me a bit of my shock in my performance review the other day.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Mm.
And what is that? Because
It made me feel like lecturing them about bad management and how there should never be shocks in performance reviews.
yeah, so that and how are those delivered, those performance reviews? Are they in person or just email?
They're supposed to be in person, but ours was in video call because someone had a problem.
Hmm. No, how about communicating? Is there a lot of context or a lot or very little context?
Quite a lot of context. It was explained, and I haven't really responded yet because I've asked for some time to think about it.
What about in general in your department or workplace? Is there usually a lot of context so people understand where they're coming from or, cultural differences, contextual differences? Is there a lot of that or is it kind of brief?
No, it's usually okay actually. I was quite surprised to be surprised, if you know what I mean.
Mm. That's cool.
But where there are disagreements, people don't tend to be open about them. So there's something one of my colleagues teaches, for example, that I really disagree with and don't like the theory and think there's no evidence for it. And I don't really don't like what that person's doing. And I was talking to another colleague the other day and found out that they feel the same way. And I think some of the others feel the same way, but none of us actually talked to the person
Ah,
about the fact that they're teaching this stuff, which the rest of us think is rubbish, that kind of thing.
thank you. Thank you, Karen. I'm just trying to get somebody else into a room here. What about the evaluating? So, is there a lot of direct feedback or indirect feedback? Hola, Marietta.
There's both really.
Yeah,
I don't know how you would. I don't think. I don't see that as opposite ends of the scale. It's
there's
different types of feedback.
yeah. So there's not a bias towards more direct feedback or more passive or indirect feedback.
I think we get both,
Yeah.
generally speaking.
Okay. Because even when you're talking about your performance review, it's like there's an opportunity to do it directly or indirectly, and that seems like a pretty important indicator of your performance review. Be-
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Okay, that's
That's an anomaly, I think.
that's good. Now, what about in decision making? Is it generally consensual or is it usually top down? Somebody's making a decision and everybody follows?
more top down.
More top down. Okay. Would you say pretty far over or about halfway between middle and?
Depends on the kind of decision, but yeah, about there.
Okay. 7.
I'm on it, no worries.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Cool. Now, Karen, when you look at all those different, when looking at these different spectrum, is there ways that you think about what you would want different, and if so, how you'd want to make that change? Is that something you think about before today, even?
I think we need to avoid confrontation, avoiding confrontation quite so much, and
Mm.
kind of get a grip and talk to each other a bit more.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think that there's anything what we've discussed so far as these 4 dimensions of CQ where we're saying like, are we aware of these differences? Do you think there's any kind of I mean, we said this earlier that, cultural intelligence isn't just about nations, it's about anything where we could have a differing of opinions at some level or different experiences. Do you feel like there's anything happening in that regard to where there's
Yeah, I used to work for an international IT and consulting company.
mm-hmm.
So I guess part of my rating of avoid confrontation uh, in the universities, in contrast to how we used to work as well, the culture was very different.
Huh. Yeah, yeah. And what would you, based on that experience, is there anything you would bring from your past experience or from this conversation so far on cross-cultural or cultural intelligence that you think you could do to make a difference in your current setup?
I'll have to think about that.
Yeah. So for example, we on that mural board we had the dimensions. One of them was the metacognitive, and there was these kind of assumption audits where it was like, how do we name some of our assumptions, get them into the room? There's a lot of vulnerability to that. There's also this kind of, when we think about this in the cognitive piece, there's the name the norm kind of habit. Then there's also in the motivational, we talk about these low risk reps. So I mean, imagine a lot of the time when your team gets together, things need to get done, but do you make space for you to kind of, as a team, try things out in low risk scenarios just so that you can name some of this? So like this avoidance, maybe part of the avoids confrontation is because it's too high stakes. Could you all as a team practice low stakes confrontations so that you could, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of some fun ways to do this, because a lot of times it's like our job is on the line, our reputation, people have legacies and egos. Um, yeah.
All right, I think we need to start closing the rooms now, but thank you, Karen, for engaging here
Yeah, thank
with
you.
us. Close.
Oh,
Here we go. Very cool.
All right, everyone. Thank you for playing and engaging with us in this activity. If you want to share how did it go, some insights that you got on the chat, we will highly appreciate that. And we will move on to the next piece, which is like we've understood why cultural intelligence and cross-cultural communication and collaboration is important. We've placed ourselves and we've placed the cultures of our institutions using these spectrums, which connects to the cognitive CQ from the framework that Garrett introduced to us earlier. But now we want to know what works build this cultural muscle. So over to
Mhm.
you, Garrett.
Gracias. Thank you. All right. So yeah, we'll start off with this designing for liftoff. And again, we're kind of rolling with this aerial aviation metaphor here. So designing for liftoff. We're going to go through and give you some examples of this. So flight plan, CQ it must be woven across your curriculum. So it's not a one-off. You only talk about it in one session. So even if you look at what we're designing for today, when the topic is designing cross-cultural business education, you'll see that other parts of the webinars that we present to you all kind of have this tone to it because we know that this community, if I look at the names, assumptions aside, we know that we're addressing people from different parts of the world. We start at 6 a.m. my time. We're well aware of it, so we try to integrate that into all the work that we do. And even if most of your at your university, if it's a very homogeneous sample of students, it doesn't hurt for you to start to weave in this cultural intelligence because not only, again, like we said, it's not just for intercultural experiences and some of these international experiences, but it actually is helpful on a very intimate level as well. So it's not a one-off stop. To navigate, you can embed strategy, ethics, and leadership. Students live in this cross-cultural thinking. We're talking about generations now that are digital natives are growing up where their friends may not live in the same state or country or province. This is a very real thing, and we won't get into the politics of that, but seems to be that genie is out of the bottle. In instruments, if you again you look at our literature review, we talk about social learning theory. So it's learned by modeling others. Part of that is again being vulnerable with each other and learning from each other and communicating openly. Social constructivism, this allows us to co-pilot our understanding so that we work together when we make mistakes, support each other through those mistakes and help. Um, those are just some instruments that you can use to tap on and find out if that is working. The cruising altitude, we very much like you can use a blended learning approach where you can read and practice, you can use videos and reflections. All of this kind of different dynamics that outperforms a single route teaching. I'm kind of in a lecture mode for you all right now. The activity we did in a breakout is much more small groups and you all working together. And then we're going to have another activity in a bit where we'll have larger groups. The inclusive route using universal design principles. And so that's again what we use throughout our webinars with you all. So multiple formats, flexible paths, and grounded in intercultural action. So you'll see that we are trying to live this throughout. But again, we're sharing this with you all so that you can be the students today and then take what you like back into your classrooms. So if we can slide over to the next slide, the high experiential learning, this is where we turn the altitude into attitude. Turbulence equals growth. So we talked about the avoidance of confrontation, that turbulence, these experiences turn theory into wisdom. It's one thing to read about these theories and these practices in books, but then to actually use them actually helps us to uh, value our own experiences and the experiences of others. These in-flight drills, so we can run simulations. When we ask you to put up some of those situational judgment tasks that helps us to get a more library of more authentic experiences that we can then turn into judgment tasks and scenarios back for you all to use in this context, but also for us when we teach this again. Role playing, allowing us to kind of find low stakes experiences for us to try things that could otherwise be high stakes and more difficult to take the risks. Scenarios, these fuel learning through conflict, tension, and emotion. Those are muscles and parts of the world that are helpful to use. Uh, these interactive experiences. And when we talk about our prime design principles, that relationship-centered piece is a really important part. Reflective on the descent. So as you're about to land, you can structure these debriefs and move learners away from their kind of feelings, because many times these confrontations or these cultural differences can erase feelings which turn into emotions. So how do we take those feelings and turn them into learnings and then opportunities for them to apply? Virtual passports, yes, COIL programs. We had somebody talk about COIL earlier. They give global experience without the travel. So again, that also gives more access to those who may not be able to afford travel and have the exposure that some of us have been fortunate to have. There's Yeah, thanks, Pauline. Cruising altitude, there's immersion and coursework, so you can put this into, you see this in a lot of universities doing this. It's a highest of the cultural intelligence lift, but also can be really, really helpful. All right, if we're going to move into the next row here, we have calibrating flight paths. 3 stages of CQ learning. We have the foundation. So this is to help the learners orient themselves, build metacognitive sense making. So this slide here, combined with that other slide earlier with the 4 components of CQ, could be really helpful for you all. Again, we will share this with you. We're actually going to deliver this as an asset as a slide deck on the Prime Pedagogy Certificate Series, their website, where we continuously share briefs on what we learned and anchor points on this kind of qualitative and quantitative insights that we're gathering from these workshops. So from foundation, we build some sense making, and then in application, we start to practice these in simulation and team projects, and you all can do this as well. And then once you do that, now you start to integrate it into real world SDG challenges, or have your students generate challenges that they have in their world to make it even more meaningful for them, and then see how they can integrate these CQ concepts and into it, components into it. Altitude tips: low CQ learners gain most from guided routes. So many times lectures like this can be really helpful. Advanced learners need this higher complexity. So like we like to say is there's a low floor, allow people to get in as they're really curious but not really confident, but then also leave a high ceiling so that those who are really advanced have an opportunity to take on the complexity. And again, when you look at those 3 stages, you can build simulations and move into more real world scenarios that generally get more complex. Regular instrument checks, again, tap on your instruments to look at these as a value and reflection. So keep us on course. We've given you an SJT at the beginning of this session. We could give them throughout, but ultimately to check in to see how people are responding to this. Now we're going to go to the passport office, to the next frame, where we check our identity and our power. Every traveler, all of us, carry identity, privilege, and a worldview. Responsible leadership begins by checking what's in our own. So it's not always about pointing out what other people have as far as who you think they are, what their privileges and the worldview. So check your own. Also challenge the assumptions. Whose values dominate in the room? Who's louder? Who's getting quieter? Whose perspectives are left out? And then one of the ways that we talked about just a moment ago about these sense checks or these regular instrument checks is to use tools as simple as the I used to think, now I think model, where you ask them to say, here's something that I used to think before today, and then here's how I think differently now. You can do that intermittently as a formative assessment check, but it allows you to kind of get into the practice to see where change occurs and maybe even reverse engineer or look back on why they think that change has occurred for them. You can use tools like this identity wheel to map routes through power, privilege, and belonging. There's many, many tools here. And again, if you look at our literature review, we'll have a lot of resources for this. Now, last, from the control tower, how do we manage turbulence and keep the crew well? Help to create a courageous space. Discomfort should be allowed, risks should be tolerated and celebrated, but safety needs to be assured. It's really hard for people to take risks if they don't feel secure. It's also why we give you that supplement for certainty that I linked to earlier, so that if you have questions, you don't need to feel that asking those questions makes you vulnerable. At the same time, we appreciate the vulnerability. Name these air pockets where the plane could jump up and down. What's that frustration? When you start to name that frustration, some people may be like, hey, I have that same frustration. It starts to build curiosity, and then together we grow together. With steady pressure, well-being keeps the crew balanced. So keeping track of each other's well-being, again, checking in on assumptions, making sure you add a lot of context to communication. Many of the spectrum, those things that were on the spectrum that we talked about earlier. Oxygen and altitude, play, humor, joy, they all ease anxiety and build connection. It's really important for in the classroom or in these low stakes environments for things to be easy. At the same time, if you can have fun and play in these low stakes, it's much easier to translate into higher stakes scenarios. Plenty of literature on that as well. Autopilot systems, this mindfulness and reflection help us to sustain equilibrium so we're not reacting to once again, when we're vulnerable. It may conjure up some feelings which turn into emotions. If we're able to be more mindful and put in reflections, it can help us to sustain that equilibrium instead of always being reactive. Shared destinations, so value the diversity. I've been in some group dynamics trainings and courses, and many times people get a little defensive when people start making friends with each other. Those are actually nice inclinations and affinities for people to work together, but also there's a diversity that can happen across those groups as well. So, people may get into their groups or their cliques, but also try to find different ways to look at each other and how we're different but similar as well. Layovers matter. Unstructured social time fuels intercultural learning. So, how do you create space in your classrooms or in your organization for people to have these unstructured social time and then kind of fuel them to interact with each other? And not in just tokenistic ways. How do you find meaningful ways for them to have fun together and learn about each other and feel comfortable to take those risks and be vulnerable? No visa boarding. So tech and a lot of the tech that we have today, from Zoom to asynchronous working platforms, and then along with Coil, this allows us to expand everyone's range. It doesn't require a lot of money and travel and time and holidays to do this anymore. So hopefully these are nice fodder for you all. And again, thank you again for listening to this kind of lecture side of it. Again, we wanted to kind of show different ways, and we have a literature review for you if you want more information or to see where these theories are coming from. All
Yeah.
right.
Thank you for sharing all your reflections in the chat. Looks like some of you are already applying many of these tools. So
Yeah.
now it's time to do what we're calling our great expedition, which basically means we'll put our behavioral CQ in practice. So you'll stay in the same breakout groups, and what we're asking of you is to step into the shoes of your students, international students, or students in international teams collaborating across borders. So your mission is to choose one challenge from these four scenarios: marketing a sustainable product across cultures, negotiating shared resources, reducing food waste, or designing our workplace policy for inclusion. And it's not like a dips. You can all work on the same one if you want. We hope you choose some diversity, but there's no there's no limitations to that. So on the board, you'll find the scenarios. They are all related to SDGs 12, 16, and 2. And you have to basically go through the template to see what is it that you have to do, because it's different in each case. So I'll show you the marketing one. So you have to design a marketing strategy as a group for a refillable, eco-friendly personal care brand, and it's launching simultaneously in the markets within your team. So you have to tailor the message for each market, and it's like a quick brainstorm mini design sprint. So do a quick research round, and then you do a visual storyboard. The connection to the CQ, and then the connection to the SDG, and you have the space here, or basically space in the board to work. There's 3 different again, and now we've also shared some useful tools you might use. So for example, for doing the board, if you want to sketch, if you want to draw, there's a tool for that. If you want to generate images using AI to work faster, so you work on the concept and then you ask AI to generate an image, we have 2 resources for that as well. Or for example, if you're working on the workplace policy for inclusion, you want to spend more time talking and discussing on the cross-culturality of that, and then you just want an AI or an LLM to refine it and turn it into a policy, that's also highly encouraged to leverage all these tools, because we have 20 minutes for this. So again, choose a scenario, go through the to-do to the inspiration. If you want to do something slightly different, it's also okay. You have the connections to CQ, to the SDGs, and you have spaces to play here. So we'll send you now to the breakout groups, and we will be back in 20 minutes.
Do you want 4 breakout rooms, or how many would you like?
The same ones,
Same
ideally.
ones. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And I know it's a
Okay.
lot, so many can work in the same place space. That's okay.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
I'll open them all up again. Sorry, I forgot that piece, Maria.
No worries. And if you're not able to join a breakout room, again, we can play here. We can choose a scenario here and work on it. Just let us know so we can give you talking
Hmm.
access.
Yeah, thanks. I was just thinking about that. Yeah, I didn't know about coil until Jamie's literature review for this. Would have loved to have had exposure to that when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Oh, that's okay. Hop into a couple rooms just to see how everything's going. Everybody, it seems pretty active. Yeah.
Brilliant. It's hard to notice from here, like just looking at the board.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, they are. It's amazing. I went into some of the very good breakout rooms and they were really participant.
I know. I love it. I love it when that happens.
I know. I told them thank you for being active and like having your cameras on stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a very solid activity. It feels like people are jumping into it. I heard people reflecting on like their early careers, how this was like foundational when you work for multinational companies
Yeah.
and stuff, right? So yeah, when we bring them back, we can go into the post SJT.
Post SJT, and then just like,
Yeah, that one should
that's it.
be pretty quick too, because they're not making
Yeah,
anything.
it's like a 1, 2. Yeah, I know it's very quick. So should we bring them back in like
5.
7, 5? Okay, let me
Let's
send
do
a
5 just
broadcast.
to make sure. Don't see a lot of creative stuff going on as far as using the LLMs and things like that.
Yeah, we might just, yeah, invite them to share how they would do it.
Yeah.
Also because of time.
One big sticky. Love it.
Yeah,
That works.
exactly.
We ready to bring them back and
Yeah.
SJT this? Okay.
Yep.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Sorry if we abruptly brought you back. Next time we'll give you a little more of a heads up here, but we saw a lot of activity. We have a couple bits before we finish here. We'd love to get a post SJT from you, but in the before we do that, if you look to the right of these scenarios, there's a reflections one, which is we'd like for you to stamp a group's passport because their strategy or idea resonated with you. We have mostly stickies here, so it's not going to be too complicated. And if you are clicked on one of the stickies, if you could click off of it, it'll make it easier for people to read. But grab one of these stickies and place it next to any of the solutions and the play spaces that you appreciate. That'd be really great. Looks like we have a couple rooms in the first scenario. We have some rooms in scenario 4. And I think a lot of you all were taking notes in different places and having conversations. So it may not have been that you transferred it to the play space, but every time I jumped into a breakout room, it seemed like there was lively conversation. Thank you for doing that. And then once you're done doing that, if you could go over to this QR code for the SJT, it's another very similar to the pre. So if you can scan that with your phone, that would be fantastic. It allows us to see if anything has changed for you over the course of this webinar when it comes to the intelligence, the cultural intelligence. Okay, so pre-test link is in there. Let's see if we can get the link in the chat. We got it in there. Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Sumaya. Yeah, exactly. If you wanted to
Amazing.
edit your learnings to the chat, we will transfer those over to the Miro board, no problem. Please just take a minute or two for this cultural intelligence SJT. You could not paste our image in the play areas? Oh, okay. If you could give us a thumbs up when you wrap up the SJT, that'd be great. And then we'll give you a little bit of a lead in to next week's. Actually, Monday.
Monday, yeah. Great. Thanks,
I'm doing
Pauline.
the panelist chat again. Okay. So lastly, so next on Monday, we have our next session. We have 2 in October to get the pace up, is that we are looking into connecting cultural intelligence to emotional intelligence. While culture matters for social justice, you can see that there's an explanation of the SDG variants. But as we explore this bottom half here, these emotional intelligence frameworks, we'll keep in mind that these 3 critical questions: whose norms are being centered as intelligent? I actually heard some of this conversation in the breakout rooms. Individual optimization or systematic transformation? That's a big question. It's a mouthful. And what's missing from the dominant approaches? We will have literature reviews for that as well. We'll have more activities. We hope you can join us on Monday at the same times as well. And we really appreciate all your effort today. And thanks for jumping into the play spaces and the breakout rooms. We hope you really enjoyed this, and we'll follow up with our usual briefs and anchor points in a couple weeks. Thank you all very much, and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Nice, Anne. Sticky notes are not working. Oh, man. Doesn't accept images, Russia.
Yeah, if you can email it to us, then I think Garrett shared his email address and we will make sure to add it. Oh, thank you, Jose, for engaging. Thank you, everyone.
There you go. Thank you, Rasha. Thanks for your patience and trying to
Yeah.
get the images. That's great. Taking that risk, being vulnerable. Thank you, everyone. All right. Okay, Nipa. Thanks for the heads up. We'll share some recordings and notes and everything from that. Hopefully you can make the other workshops as well. Well, on behalf of Prime and Winded Vertigo, Garrett, myself, Garrett, and then Maria and Marietta, we thank you and have a fabulous rest of your day. We'll be in touch soon. Bye-bye.